Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, joined by our great friend Lars Larson, Lars Larson Show, LarsLarson.com. Lars, good morning.
Kevin, good morning to you. And look at the invasion of our country from the southern border. Americans have never had a chance to see video of such a clear picture of what's literally been going on here in this country for 3 decades. A literal invasion of our country. And we have liberals who are cheering it on. They say it's grown to as many as 7,000 people. Over the weekend, I tweeted something out because I thought, when I saw the video of this crowd of people from Honduras and Guatemala and all the hangers-on, which had hit 4,000 or 5,000 people by the time it got to the border gates, you know, where you leave Guatemala and cross a bridge into Mexico, and they broke through the gates and filled that bridge to capacity with 4,000 or 5,000 people. I thought that is the best advertisement for Donald Trump's wall that I've seen in a long time.
Indeed. And Lars, before we get to that, I was going to ask you, do you have the same challenge that we do in Idaho? Too many people from California moving in?
Yes, absolutely, because they move in, and that's fine. I'm not going to restrict the right of American citizens to travel. That's in the Constitution. The problem is when they leave California to escape what's going on down there, they bring some of the same attitudes and votes to the Northwest states that they are running away from in California. They say it's too expensive, it's too crowded, the schools are too crowded, the highways are too crowded, the housing costs too much, and then what they do is come north and bring those problems north with them. So while they have a right to move anywhere in America they want to, the problem is they bring the problems with them. And they, I think, bring the votes that they've cast in California. Some will be conservative. Some will have seen up close what it's like. Others will say, well, now that I'm here, I want the same politicians in office. Well, California voters routinely vote conservative, and I can give you half a dozen examples, but they elect liberals to office. It's a little bit contradictory in that they elect people like Jerry Brown, Governor Moonbeam as governor. They choose Feinstein and Boxer and some real knuckleheads for Congress. But then when you ask them about specific issues, would you like to get rid of the death penalty? That's a conservative point of view, to keep the death penalty. They vote to keep the death penalty. When you ask them about, even Schwarzenegger's election was largely about stopping illegal aliens from gaining official status in that state, which now they have achieved in that state. The state of California has given out 1.1 million driver's licenses. Well, back when Schwarzenegger ran to replace Gray Davis in the recall, 1/3 of the people who voted for him said specifically, "This is why I'm voting for him." So, yeah, it is a problem that the southern attitudes from California are coming to the northern states like Oregon, Washington, and Idaho.
Indeed, of course. How do you combat that? And we have it's almost like a weekly thing where we have the good Californians and the bad Californians. Everybody, no one claims to be a lib. They're all just like, "Oh no, I'm good." And I'm thinking, well, the driving styles, not giving up their plates, the California values, very different from Oregon values or Idaho values.
Well, and it's funny because Idaho for quite a while has ranked as having the state with the 2 most conservative U.S. senators in America. Do you think that's going to stay the case for very long if you have a lot of California voters start to join your ranks?
I would. Well, I'm hopeful, but I lived in New Hampshire when it was truly a conservative state and a libertarian state, and now it's, the blue wave is there. I would hope that it wouldn't happen here in Idaho, and you have all these folks moving in. You have to wonder. And you have to wonder the unique relationship between the president and a state like Idaho and a state like Utah, where they love his policies, but behavior matters, Lars. As someone who has lived in the West, studied the West, is the West, what do you make of the kind of, Utah's a very lukewarm state to the president, Idaho much more presidential friendly, but you have people, your callers from across the country. I love the president, I just don't like his behavior. What do you think?
Well, I think it's really kind of odd because what did we hire him to do? I know we would like presidents to be great examples of personal behavior. We'd like that. But what we hire them to do is to make decisions for the whole country with regard to national security, which he's been doing a great job at, since the federal government has decided to insert itself to such a great extent in the economy, we want a president who makes great decisions about the economy, and Donald Trump has done that. So he's doing his job, and yet he's rough around the edges in terms of some of the personal behavior he engages in, and not just the Access Hollywood tape and comments like that, but also some of the behavior. I know that everyone got upset when he described Stormy Daniels as horse face. Well, that's a rude thing to do, and it's not the way you behave, and I know it's not the way I behave. But I'll forgive him his rough edges if he gets the job done. And I think that General Grant had some rough edges. Abraham Lincoln did some things that people would disagree with today. Churchill was a drinker and didn't pay his bills, and he was rude to people, and he got the job done. So the question is, do you want someone who will get the job done or someone who really talks pretty the way that Barack Obama talked pretty and didn't do the nation any favors? Which one would you rather have? A president who gets things done on behalf of the American people, or one who really is polite and well-mannered and never says a cross word and then doesn't get the job done? Which would you rather have?
Someone who gets the job done, thankfully.
That's my attitude about it, and that I can forgive him his rough edges. I mean, we're coming up on a dinner I love to go to in about a month called the Chartwell Dinner that honors Sir Winston Churchill. And yet everyone who's a fan of Churchill knows that he wasn't a philanderer. He stayed true to Clementine, but he smoked cigars, he drank to excess, he was rude to people around him. He didn't get along well with almost anybody. His own party, I think, hated him only a little bit less than the opposition party. But boy, when it came time to save the world, literally, he got it done. And I think that's what Donald Trump has done. So can you forgive him those parts of what he is in exchange for somebody who's actually got it done? For example, Kevin, I know that you have a lot of people in the state of Idaho who are farmers and who are involved in manufacturing. The last president added almost $300 billion in new regulations. And what I mean by that is, if the radio station all of a sudden had a new rule that you had to comply with, your chief engineer might tell the boss, well, this is going to cost us $10,000 a year to comply with this rule, to fill out the paperwork or buy the equipment or comply with the rule. That's how regulations have a cost. Barack Obama added almost $1/3 $1 trillion in regulations, and those are things that don't actually manufacture any goods or services. So they don't do anything that has a real value to the company or to the people you serve. On the other hand, Donald Trump has not only not added regulations, he has had a net subtraction of regulatory cost to the country of $33 billion. So imagine that kind of change and what it's done for the economy and how it actually has an impact on everybody listening. You may not, if you're a wages worker who works at a company and you say, well, all those decisions are made far above me. If the company has $100,000 less to spend every year because of the cost of meeting federal regulations, that's at least 2 employees that can't be hired. So that's 2 more opportunities for you or your friends to have a job that go away just to comply with the regulations. And regulations are ordinarily something that kind of makes people's eyes glaze over, but that's one of the important changes that the Trump presidency has brought about.
Lars Larson joining us, Lars Larson Show. You can catch him weeknights at 6 right here on KIDO Talk Radio. Lars Larson anytime, LarsLarson.com, on Facebook, Twitter, every social media element. As a national host, what's your vibe about this alleged blue wave, Lars, where even Chuck Todd is saying, well, it might not be what we thought it was?
I think they should take a look at the metrics. First of all, I think that Americans will look at what happened to Judge Justice now, Kavanaugh, and the way that he was treated. While we all believe that women should be treated well, I don't think we take false accusations lightly, and that's exactly what this was. The Democrats and their allies had sought to destroy a man, to take away his ability to make a living, to be on the Supreme Court, to be a lawyer or anything else. They don't take that lightly because they all know it could just as easily be a member of their family, and not just males, but females as well. The president's favorability ratings now are just a tick higher than Barack Obama's were at the same point in his presidency. So that bodes well. You've got black enthusiasm for the president, which I think I pointed out to you before, has reached really record levels. He got 8% of the vote, so that was 2016. In 2017, he had about 23% of black Americans saying, I have a favorable view of the president. And if you want to know why, it's because black unemployment has hit historic lows, record lows, and now this year, black favorability, Donald Trump being taken favorably by black Americans, has now hit 36%. That's unbelievable. And ordinarily, the Democrats can turn to black Americans and say, we need your vote. And black Americans say, well, I have to support the Democrats because they're the ones that have always supported us. Not really. I mean, I could point out how the Democrats have just used black Americans. But when you see numbers like that, overall favorability better than Obama at this point, the economy going extraordinarily well, the president that many liberals said he's going to get us into a war has actually got us in a better position to avoid a war. We may literally see the formal end to the Korean War, which has been in armistice, but going on now for 2/3 of a century. And so I think with all of those positives, the Democrats praying for a blue wave, good luck with that. I don't think it's going to happen, and I think this caravan may be the capper. Americans seeing it, the president saying we cannot let this happen. We cannot let thousands of people just say because the president was pressured to back off from zero tolerance, and almost immediately when we back off from it, thousands of people show up on a path to your border saying, we demand that you let us in. Now, hold on a second. I had guests this weekend at my home. They were invited. If they had behaved badly, I'd have asked them to leave. And if they behaved badly enough, I would never ask them to come back. They're regular guests at our home, but we love these guys. But the thing is, if you have somebody who just shows up at your door, an acquaintance of yours or even a good friend, say, Kevin, let me in.
Right.
And by the way, put dinner on the table for me, and where can I sit down and crack a beer and watch your TV?
Right.
And they demand it. What would your response be even to a good friend who makes that kind of demand?
Right. Time to go.
Yep.
Right.
You're not welcome here anymore when you show up at my door and demand to come in. No. Nobody demands to come in. Well, this is a group of people that's now eclipsed 7,000, maybe 10,000. And I'll tell you something else, Kevin. I did a little research this morning. It's almost 2,000 miles from the Guatemalan border, which they reached this weekend, to El Paso, Texas. So in a car, that's 30 hours of driving. It would be a 5-day drive if you drove 6 hours a day at a pretty good speed. What do you want to bet? That walking 2,000 miles would easily take you 90 to 100 days to move a caravan of people on foot. These people are not on foot. You watch. They're going to be at our border. We've now got just a couple of weeks before the election. Do you think they're going to cover those last 2,000 miles, shown on camera as trudging their way toward freedom, by the mainstream fake stream media that lies on a regular basis? They're going to cover those last 2,000 miles, I would guess, by a week from now.
Right, and then goes the question, Lars, well, who's funding them? How is that going to, how do they, with all these large number of people?
Even if I couldn't prove that it's Michael Bloomberg and George Soros and allies of the Democrat Party, I think it wouldn't matter. What matters is that because I can't prove it, and likely they'll try to keep their fingerprints off of it. But we know who's encouraging it. There are no Democrats standing up that I've seen saying you can't just let a crowd of people demand to be let into the country. And there is a right way to get in. And Kevin, your audience needs to know, if they haven't heard it before, we do allow refugees to come in. But here's the standard for refugee status. If you are being persecuted because of particulars about your existence, your race, your religion, those kinds of things, if you're being persecuted by your government, that gives you refugee status. If you're merely saying the economy stinks in Honduras and there's a lot of crime, well, there's a lot of crime in Chicago too. Those kinds of things do not qualify you for refugee status under the United States laws. Now, you might say, well, we should change the law. Great. You go to your members of Congress and say to them, let's change the law and say anyone who is economically deprived is allowed to come into our country on refugee status, which, by the way, gives you access, indefinite access to all of our social services. So how much of the world, from an economic standpoint, would like to move to the United States? Is it 2 billion people? I would guess it's at least 2 billion people whose local economic circumstances are very sad and who would be in much better shape if they were in the United States. How many people can the United States take in before the U.S. becomes another third world country? And ask your listeners, are the freeways already crowded? Is housing already in short supply? Are your kids going to a school that's already crowded, too crowded for your kids to learn at their optimal rate? There are jobs available, and I'll give you that, 7 million open jobs right now, so nobody has an excuse to be on welfare who is able-bodied and sound of mind. We have 7 million open jobs begging for people to come work them. But if you think your community is already overcrowded, the rent's going up too fast, you can't afford to buy a house, your kids are in a crowded school, and all the rest of that, ask me if you want to see another, say, 1 million people, just 1 million people from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and all the other Central and South American countries. Do you want another million people to come in? Because then your housing costs are going to go up more, your social service costs are going to go up more, and your kids are going to be sitting in a very crowded classroom, and their future is tied to what happens in that classroom. Tell me if you're going to welcome that kind of invasion, and it is an invasion.
Lars Larson, we always appreciate you. We'll catch you tonight. Thank you so much, sir.
Wall Street Journal just reporting this morning, Trump's approval rating is hitting an all-time high right now, 47%. It's looking really good.
Lars, thank you, sir.
You bet. Take care, Kevin.
All right, our great friend Lars Larson, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
The group has grown larger. Around 7,000 people, many from Honduras, are pressing on despite amnesty offers from the Mexican government and threats from President Trump.
I will seal off the border before they come into this country.
But the migrants say they're coming to the United States to escape violence and find work.
Say hello to Donald Trump. We're going to visit him there.
President Trump tweeted the caravans are a disgrace to the Democrat Party and that immigration laws should be changed now. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
And now we're getting to see the total desperation of Democrats nationally and locally. You can't win in the elections. You can't win in the Supreme Court. So bring in a new crew that is invading the country. Many believe that it's a humanitarian crisis. Really, could you say that for just about anything in the entire world? More on that in a minute. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. And I'm Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. So getting back to this migrant thing, we've had people calling in all morning long saying, this is an issue that is very important. It's a humanitarian crisis. Well, you could say that those things going on in Africa or South America or in the Middle East or in North Korea, they're a humanitarian crisis. Look what Lars Larson said. What is it? 2 billion people would love to come to the United States of America. So you have these folks, because of geography, that are coming here and demanding to come in. It's not like they're saying, may I come in? They're not asking for permission. They're demanding it. Why are they doing that? Because they've been emboldened by Democrats like Maxine Waters and others, Beto and all the other gang of usual suspects, Dick Durbin and the like, that are hoping against hope that we're all distracted by the Powerball, the Mega Millions, that we're not keeping an eye on the prize. You heard the president. He had this to say.
More importantly, or maybe almost as importantly, you have some very, very bad people in the caravan. You have some very tough criminal elements within the caravan. But I will seal off the border before they come into this country. And I'll bring out our military, not our reserves. I'll bring out our military.
The president isn't playing. And what the Democrats and the libs and everyone else want the president to do is not to enforce his word, is to let this to happen so they can embarrass the president. Whether it's a humanitarian crisis or not, I don't get how people can just walk 2,000 miles in a couple days. No, this is orchestrated. This is undermining our national safety, security, and sovereignty. And if it were Obama, if it were Clinton, they would be saying, let the good times roll. We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And from your house to the White House, exclusively on KIDO Talk Radio, John Decker joins us. John, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you doing today?
Not bad. The president, a busy week. He's a traveling president and doesn't hold back on just about anything.
The president, yes, hitting the road today. He'll be leaving the White House a little bit later this afternoon, heading down to Houston, Texas to campaign for a former rival, Ted Cruz, who's running for re-election in Texas, running in a tough race. The president doing all he can for every Republican who's running across the country, particularly in tight races. And so the president will be hitting the road today. He'll be hitting the road Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday as well. And I think we'll see a similar type of schedule, Kevin, next week as we head closer and closer to the midterms.
John, is the president doing anything different than some of his predecessors, or is he in overdrive, or is this just about what you'd expect from a president in his first midterm?
Well, you know, all presidents obviously campaign on behalf of candidates from their party. There's no doubt about it. I think that this president is working a little bit harder than the previous two presidents, campaigning for those Republicans running for re-election. The president is spending time in states that are often overlooked. Montana, for instance, the president has already made a few trips to Montana, not just one that he took last week, and may actually go back there if polls show that it will be worth the president's while to do so. The president also traveling out west, as you know, late last week to Nevada and to Arizona, two very tight Senate races there. Dean Heller running for re-election. Martha McSally trying to keep the seat in Arizona in Republican hands now that Jeff Flake said that he will not be running for re-election. And so president on the road quite a bit. And I think it's paying off. I think that Republicans will likely keep the Senate in Republican hands. I don't know about the House because there are just so many races that you have to take into account. There are 435 races happening in the House across the country. So it's obviously going to be one of those things where we'll watch on election night to see what happens as it relates to who controls the House in the next Congress.
Indeed. Of course, you go back to Montana, Senator Tester. Senator Tester's not your typical senator, a farmer who actually farms, has beaten the odds many times. Always a close race, but maybe it's always personal with the president. But what do you think of that race?
Yeah, it's an interesting race. I think that of the Democrats who are running in so-called red states, like John Tester, he's in relatively good shape. It's a tight race. Anything can happen, in the final 2 weeks. But he's run that race pretty well. The same thing can be said for Joe Manchin, who's also running in a red state, and he's a Democrat. I think he's likely to be reelected, actually, even though President Trump won West Virginia by 41 points in 2016. And so ultimately for some of these races, it just comes down to the individual. The people of various states decide, whether they like the individual. They don't really pay that much attention to a certain extent in terms of what follows their name, a D or an R. And that might be the case with John Tester as we get closer and closer to Montanans going to the polls on November the 6th.
Yeah, like I said, I've met Senator Tester a few times, been to his office. A very down-home kind of guy, and, it's going to be such a contrast between the popularity of the president and a native son.
Well, that's the thing. He is a native son. His opponent, if you count where a person grew up and, how long they've been in the state, is not a native son. That may count for something, in a place like Montana. Certainly John Tester's playing that up. His opponent originally from Maryland. So that may be something that figures into the voting decision of some Montanans. And in that particular state, it's one of those things where the president is doing all he can to motivate the base, like he's doing in many parts of the country, trying to keep both the House and the Senate in Republican hands.
John Decker, anything else we should be looking out for this week with the president? Obviously, the caravan.
The president following that caravan. He's in a tweet today, he blamed the Democrats for the caravan, and he also tweeting that Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador may pay the price, saying that the U.S. will now cut off aid to those countries for not doing enough to stop people from leaving their country. So I would not be surprised to see the president speak about the caravan tonight at that campaign rally in Houston, Texas.
He and Ted Cruz back together again. It's going to be something we'll be talking about for quite some time. John, always appreciate you, brother.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a great day. I'll talk to you real soon.
Yes, sir. Take care. John Decker joining us from the White House right here only on KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, now, let's go to Adam in Garden City on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Kevin. Good to talk to you again. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my journey down to Elko over the weekend to see the president. And I'm just going to say that what I experienced, I talked to a lot of people. I talked to as many people as I could because I kind of had an idea what the president was going to talk about. I've been following the rallies and the talking points, but I just want to say a couple of things here. I wrote these down just as soon as the visit was over. I really didn't want to leave Elko because I met such a great group of people. Those people in Elko, if you're hearing me, thank you for such a warm welcome. Thank you for the generosity and having us there and visiting your town. I mean, Elko, I think, really got a facelift out of this visit. I've talked to people with such overwhelming optimism. People were working again. I heard from all walks of life, the affluent, the lower middle class that just made the journey to say thank you to the president. But this one particular lady that I talked to, she was a single mother of 3, and she got off her third shift job to visit the rally, to see the president, to express support and appreciation. And it really touched me because I'm a single dad. And to see that how her family was brought together, she's providing for her family a really good job. But people's hope was restored down there. I could really see that people are working again. People are gathering together. Hope, with other people. Lots of women down there, by the way. This was an amazing thing. But I was trying to talk to fellows around me, but like when I got on the bus, women, young people, a lot of youth. In fact, there was, I would mention there was 2 gay ladies right in front of me, very much in for the Trump train, very much in support of the president. But one thing I think that should be noted is there was a spirit of faith in God there. And I wrote down about 52 qualities. If people do not think that God's hand is not on the president, they're off. But I wrote down about 52 qualities of the people that I saw there, and that can only be just the mighty hand of God, just directing this country, putting it where it needs to be. Also want to make a comment that a lot of the people that I had spoke to were leaving Hollywood establishment, movies, people that speak against, the president and comedians, whatever. They're just, they're just focusing on their family, they're focusing on jobs, their community, and that's a real beautiful thing. Also, I wanted to say that I'm sorry, I'm about ready to cry. Just a real touching, beautiful thing. So,
Adam, you take all the time in the world that you need. We appreciate it, and that's the idea of why we have this show.
Yeah, and I appreciate you giving me the time because I was talking to people all weekend. People were like, "Hey, you were there? Wow, what was it like?" But like I said, there was just kindness, loyalty, peacefulness, purposefulness. There was just so many things that I could just illustrate of what is going on with people, not only in Elko. I wish he would come to Boise because I tell you what, it would be like a piñata busting of hope and of purpose and of compassion passion and confidence, because it is I've seen the rallies, just like the guy said earlier in the hour. He's seen the rallies on TV and he's heard about it. But man, when you're there personally and you're talking to the people, you are now seeing the effect of a good economy, a safe place. And that was another thing too. I talked to this couple from Lake Tahoe. They said, it's wonderful to feel the safety. You don't have to worry about Rocket Man launching missiles. And he talked about these things. He talked about so many things that I think really touched even a deep thinker like me, but also, really engineered people to say, look, this is what the fight is against the left. The Democrats are obviously putting the country in a worse shape, and people are woken up, and people are alive to the fact that, hey, this is, quite frankly, it's our neighbors, but it is like a good versus evil conflict. And if we want to see this country moving forward, safer, stronger, greater again, we just need to get our Republicans in, getting people, to activate in the communities and paying it forward, doing simple things. I remember feeling when the president was in the primaries, I'm like, this guy, he's going to get it. And I was starting to feel myself wanting to pay it forward to people. I would go to Sonic and I would throw a couple dollars, say, hey, put this to the guy's ticket behind me. And, and I was finding other people were doing this. And this is something that's not been really spoken of, but, my faith in God really increased, seeing that God has answered my prayers with this president. And it was truly evident that with other people there that I spoke to, good-looking people, I'll tell you, it was beautiful. And I would like to see him come here because I know what it would do to the Treasure Valley.
Well, we're going to continue to work on that, Adam. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
And that's really what, God bless. I'm sorry, Adam. God bless you and all those people that traveled to Elko. This is really, our mission is to empower the folks here in the Treasure Valley. We're not marginalized. We're not second-class citizens. We are the Americans, and we love our president to come here. We're working with groups. We're working with you to make that happen. That's really what it's going to need to make that happen. Back to the phones, we go to Pro-Life, who joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, that Adam, he's quite the guy. That's really good that he's got faith in God. But anyway,
well, that we don't have a problem talking about our faith in God. In fact,
no, we don't.
We love talking about our faith in God in the morning here, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Now, President Trump, it's good that he's going to put the military on the border and stop those people at all costs, I believe. And that's what he's proposing, and I think he'll do that. He's wrong about one thing, saying that he's going to withhold funds from the Central American countries. That's Congress's jurisdiction. They have to make that decision, and he should let them. He should encourage Congress to do that. I don't think it's his decision to make that, how much money is going to go to those countries. But anyway, and then I want to say something on Proposition 1.
You're a little all over the place.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
maybe you need to be a little bit more focused.
Why? You got to be broad-minded. You know what I'm saying? You got to get a lot of points in. Proposition 1 is the government supporting.
We were talking about
gambling.
Proposition 1 last hour.
Yeah, I know we were.
Why didn't you call in then?
Well, I can only call in once.
You're right. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just giving you a hard time. Sorry.
All right. Proposition 1 is the government supporting gambling. And I don't think we need the lottery. I think we should be like Utah and Hawaii and have a total ban on gambling in the whole state. People can gamble if they want to at a card game in a back room or something, but to have government-supported gambling is not right, and especially because that teaches the people that gambling is a legitimate exercise, and it isn't. It doesn't do anything productive. There's no productive thing that comes from gambling. It's just cheap entertainment. And
now,
you
wait a minute.
lose.
We can raise a lot of money by the gambling.
Yeah,
we can solve all our problems by legalizing the dope and the gambling. And why not throw in prostitution and call it the big three?
Right. But see, people, most of the people that gamble are people that need to get out of the hole. And so
what do you say to all those people that are getting ready to spend money on the lottery?
Yeah, it's a tax on the poor people trying to get out of the hole by putting a bunch of money into gambling. It's stupid. They should know better. But anyway, Proposition 2 is no good either. So anyway, I went to another subject. But God bless all those people who went down to Elko. We used to live down there. I worked for the Caterpillar dealer there for about 12 years, and we know Elko real well. And we like Idaho better.
Well, that is reassuring.
Yeah. And the people coming from California, most of them are conservative. So
I don't know about that. I almost got run over in the Fred Meyer parking lot by one of them. You imagine, in Idaho, all of a sudden you're walking, they don't give you the right of way, and this guy just zips through like 3 lanes, doesn't even look, could have hit somebody.
That means he was a conservative. A liberal they usually drive a little better.
It's inexcusable. Thank you, pro-life. Tea Party Bob joins us now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. How do you follow that guy?
I don't know. I'm really not sure how you follow any of these guys you've got on this morning. It's going to be a little difficult. You know, I think it's about time America put foot down and just said no. And if that means putting troops at the border, then we should do it. You know, this is not a humanitarian crisis. This whole incident is being staged to be an election issue. And they're hoping for a violent confrontation so the progressives can once again accuse Trump of being unsympathetic and mean. So let's face it, these people are coming here for jobs that are held by Americans and all the goodies that they can get their hands on in terms of social services. And we need to take down the welcome sign for illegals that has been up for way too long. You know, it's time to stop the flow of the illegals and tell Congress to change the immigration laws to protect our country from the invasions like this. You know, I do believe that this march in Mexico is going to help President Trump get the money to build the wall and will also bolster the voting for the Republicans on November 6th. Democrats have overplayed their hand, and we're going to see a lot of pushback by the voters. When you see the rallies that Trump has and the crowds he draws, that tells you how popular and powerful, what a powerful message he's delivering to the American people. You know, he's at 47% approval rating. And considering the divide we have in this country, that is one heck of an achievement. And on the horse racing issue, oh boy, horsing around again. First of all, it's unconstitutional. Second, the gambling preys on a lower income group. And people are hoping to strike it rich. And third, can we really trust the backers of this horse racing to actually do what they say they will do and turn over the money and the proceeds to the charitable organization that's supposed to be for the benefit of rural Idaho? And if they do, who's going to run that organization? An independent group or the money guys pushing for the racing? I personally would like to see horse racing back in Boise, but with the proper controls when it comes to gambling and keeping track of the proceeds, unlike the last time when they absconded with them. I haven't got much else to say, Kevin. I can't compete with some of the people you've had on this morning. Very, very good show.
Well, you're no David Limbaugh.
I definitely am not a David Limbaugh, and I'm not aspiring to be one either.
Tea Party Bob, GemStatePatriot.com. Thank you, sir.
Have a great day, my friend.
All right. Don't forget, if you missed David Limbaugh's interview, you can go to KIDOTalkRadio.com about 10 o'clock and listen to it now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And our Kevin Miller thought for the day.
The choice for every American could not be more clear than it is right now. Democrats produce mobs, Republicans produce jobs.
Take that, Blue Wave. Traffic and weather together. And Kevin Miller in the morning here. Don't forget Glenn Beck coming up next. And yes, I've got it right this week. Coming up Wednesday at 7:35, it will be Bill O'Reilly with Kevin Miller and you. Looking forward to that. Hope you have a blessed day. Thank you all for listening. Ray and Maya, great job as always. Hope you all continue to keep the faith, and God bless.